They see your silence and call it peace, mistaking your deliberate calm for an absence of conflict. They observe your independence and label it arrogance, blind to the fortress of self-reliance you were forced to build. They watch you walk away from chaos and call you cold, never understanding the internal war you just chose not to fight in their arena. What they perceive as your greatest strengths are, in fact, the very architecture of your most profound struggles. Welcome, brother, to the Sigma male community. Today we are not here to celebrate the myth, but to dissect the man. We are turning our analytical gaze inward, not with judgment, but with the cold, hard precision required for true mastery. We will explore the 11 fundamental weaknesses that are not just flaws, but the tragic, inevitable byproduct of the Sigma's core programming, the dark side of the very traits that make you who you are. This is not about condemnation. It is about awareness, because the warrior who does not know the chinks in his own armor is the first to fall. 1. Silent rage, the internal pressure cooker. The world mistakes the Sigma's calm for tranquility, but it is the eerie stillness of a pressure cooker reaching its limit. Unlike the explosive, temporary fury of the Alpha, the Sigma's anger is a far more dangerous substance. It is a cold, dense, and patient rage. Every insult, every betrayal, every frustrating obstacle is not discarded but absorbed, analyzed, and filed away in the vast, silent archive of the mind. This isn't a failure to feel. It is a refusal to display emotion in a way that could be perceived as a loss of control. He processes fury with logic, stripping it of its heat but compounding its weight. This compressed resentment builds silently, creating an internal pressure that is imperceptible to the outside world. He doesn't just get angry. He allows the anger to become a part of his operating system, a quiet hum beneath the surface that informs his every decision with a cold, unforgiving clarity. The man who can control his rage is respected, but the man who internalizes it entirely is building his own prison. The fallout of this internal compression is catastrophic, though it often manifests in silence. This accumulated pressure doesn't lead to shouting matches. It leads to final, irreversible decisions. When the limit is reached, a door is slammed shut with chilling finality. A business partner is excised, a friendship is deleted, a lover is ghosted, all without the courtesy of a final argument. The calm is not peace, it is the charging of a weapon. This silent rage warps perception, fostering a deep-seated mistrust of others and a state of hypervigilance where minor slights are interpreted as declarations of war. It creates a profound isolation as the Sigma builds walls not only to keep others out, but to contain the immense pressure within. The Stoic principle of mastering one's emotions is twisted into a dangerous suppression, where the unexpressed anger becomes the very chain that binds him, proving that the most dangerous enemy is the one you willingly harbor inside. 2. The underdog trap, comfort in the shadows. There is a unique power in being underestimated, a tactical advantage that the Sigma male has mastered. He thrives in the shadows, observing the game from the periphery, allowing others to exhaust themselves in the blinding spotlight of ego and ambition. This comfort in obscurity, however, becomes a gilded cage. He develops a deep-seated disdain for self-promotion, viewing it as a crude and undignified spectacle. He operates on the flawed premise that pure competence and undeniable results are self-evident, that they should organically command respect and reward without the need for announcement. This Stoic belief in action over words becomes a critical vulnerability in a world that often values perception over reality. He forgets that value, uncommunicated, is functionally worthless in the marketplace of opportunity. The cost of this perpetual camouflage is a slow and silent bleeding of potential. While he is in his workshop perfecting the product, the deal is being made on the golf course by a lesser man with a louder voice. While he believes his strategic silence is a mark of honor, promotions, partnerships, and life-altering connections pass him by, not because he is incapable, but because he is invisible. He clings to the nobility of being the hidden hand, the ghost in the machine, while watching the world reward the visible. This refusal to play the game is not a sign of superior character. It is a strategic blunder. The shadow that once served as his greatest tactical asset slowly transforms into his most limiting liability, leaving him a king in a kingdom of one, his vast worth unrecognized and his impact deliberately contained. 3. The focus blackout, lost in the mission. When a Sigma male locks onto a mission, the world around him ceases to exist. It is a form of cognitive teleportation. He doesn't just concentrate. He dissolves into the task, becoming one with the problem he is solving or the goal he is pursuing. This state of hyperfocus is a superpower, allowing him to achieve in days what takes others months. During these periods, biological needs become mere suggestions, social obligations become irritating static, and the passage of time becomes an irrelevant abstraction. He will forget to eat, to sleep, to answer the call of a friend, not out of malice, but because the entire bandwidth of his consciousness has been allocated to a single, all-consuming objective. This relentless drive is the engine of his greatest achievements, forging empires of innovation and creativity from the raw material of pure, undiluted will. But this superpower comes with a terrifying cost: the blackout. While he is lost in his mission, life moves on without him. The world does not pause. Relationships, like untended gardens, wither from neglect. The friend who needed him learns to stop calling. The partner who sought connection learns to live with his absence. He emerges from his self-imposed isolation, blinking in the sudden light of the present, holding a trophy of his achievement, only to find himself standing in a room that has grown cold and empty. He conquered the mountain but missed the entire journey. This paradox of productivity is a recurring tragedy in the Sigma's life, where the very intensity that allows him to build his legacy simultaneously starves him of the human connection that would give that legacy meaning. He builds monuments to his focus, unaware they are also tombstones for the moments he sacrificed. For 0 or 100, the absence of middle ground. For the Sigma male, life is a binary system. There is no dimmer switch, only on or off. Engagement is total or it is non-existent. The concept of casual interest or lukewarm participation is a foreign language he cannot comprehend. If a subject, a skill, or a person captures his interest, he will commit with a ferocious, all-consuming intensity. He will read every book, master every technique, and analyze every angle until he has achieved a level of dominance. He doesn't just have hobbies, he has temporary obsessions. He doesn't just have friends, he has allies to whom he is intensely loyal. This is the 100. A state of pure, unadulterated investment that is both breathtaking and slightly frightening to witness. The other side of this binary switch is 0. Absolute clinical indifference. The moment a project's challenge fades, a relationship is perceived as an energetic drain, or a career path loses its profound purpose, the switch is flipped. The detachment is instantaneous and surgical. There is no gradual fading, no sentimental clinging to what was. The connection is severed without ceremony or regret. This isn't born of cruelty, but from a deep-seated inability to tolerate the friction of mediocrity or the inefficiency of waning interest. The fallout of this all-or-nothing approach is a life of jarring transitions. It creates emotional whiplash for those around him and leaves a trail of abandoned projects, discarded passions, and broken connections. It denies him the sustainable growth and richness found in the nuanced, messy, and often mundane middle ground where most of life is actually lived. He conquers or he abandons, leaving no space for simply being. 5. The independence illusion, self-sufficiency as self-sabotage. The foundational pillar of the Sigma identity is radical self-reliance. The need for help is not just seen as a practical inconvenience, it is perceived as a character flaw, a fundamental breach of his own code. He wears independence like a suit of impenetrable armor, convinced that any form of dependency is the ultimate vulnerability. Every problem is his to solve, every burden is his to carry, every battle is his to fight alone. He will actively push away sincere offers of support, not out of pride, but out of a deep, philosophical commitment to autonomy. He has built a fortress around himself, designed to withstand any external threat, and he is its sole occupant and defender. The Stoic ideal of being a rock is taken to its most extreme and dangerous conclusion. The tragic irony is that this fortress of independence inevitably becomes a prison. The very walls designed to protect him are the same walls that prevent anyone from reaching him when he is truly in need. When he is drowning, mentally, financially, or emotionally, his core programming forbids him from sending a distress signal. He will double down on his solitude, mistaking a stoic silence for strength, while the crushing weight of his burdens quietly grinds him into dust. People in his life eventually learn not to offer help, respecting the boundaries he has so fiercely erected, which only reinforces his solitary confinement. His greatest point of pride, "I need no one," becomes the very mechanism of his downfall. This refusal to show vulnerability ensures that his breaking point is invisible to everyone, including, sometimes, himself, until it is far too late. The armor starves him of the one thing that can repair it: genuine human connection. Whether you live this code or simply study its enigma, understand this: the Sigma's defining strength, that fierce, uncompromising independence, is also the trapdoor beneath their feet. It convinces them they are an island, needing nothing and no one. But isolation isn't strength, it's a slow erosion. That relentless self-sufficiency blinds them to the fact that 90% of their battles rage unseen, because they refuse to lower the drawbridge. True power isn't found in solitary endurance, it's found in strategic connection. The ability to remain sovereign while knowing when to leverage alliance. That's the evolved Sigma. Can you recognize the fortress you've built as also your cage? 6. Pain's architect, the master of masks. The Sigma male is not merely stoic, he is a virtuoso of concealment. He views the expression of pain or vulnerability not as a human necessity, but as a critical security flaw in his operating system. A weakness that an opportunistic world will inevitably exploit. To prevent this, he becomes the architect of his own facade, a master of masks designed for every social occasion. He can perform his duties with flawless precision, laugh at the appropriate jokes and offer rational advice, all while an internal storm of grief, anxiety, or despair rages unseen. He doesn't just endure his suffering. He actively and meticulously buries it beneath layers of impenetrable composure and calculated normalcy. This mastery of disguise is a double-edged sword of the sharpest kind. While it protects him from external judgment, it also ensures his complete isolation in his struggle. Pain that is never acknowledged, never shared, does not simply disappear. It metastasizes in the darkness. It festers and grows, emerging later as crippling cynicism, chronic health issues born of stress, or a sudden, complete emotional shutdown that mystifies those around him. The performance is so convincing that by the time the mask finally cracks, the internal damage is often catastrophic. His greatest skill, the ability to hide any weakness, becomes the very thing that guarantees he will suffer alone, making any path to recovery infinitely more difficult and lonely. He becomes a casualty of his own impeccable camouflage. 7. The overactive mind, a cage of constant cognition. The concept of a quiet mind is a foreign luxury to the Sigma. His mind is not a peaceful sanctuary, it is a high-security command center running complex simulations and threat assessments 24/7. It is a relentless engine of cognition that is incapable of shutting down. Simple relaxation is impossible. A casual conversation is not just a conversation, it's a data-gathering exercise where he is analyzing body language, vocal tones, and hidden motives. A past decision isn't a memory, it's a case file to be reopened and re-examined with forensic intensity for flaws and alternative outcomes. Sleep is not a state of rest but a different kind of battlefield, where the unresolved strategic dilemmas of his waking life continue their relentless assault. This cognitive overdrive is the source of his brilliant intuition and his ability to see patterns that others miss. But the price for this intellectual horsepower is a nervous system perpetually on high alert. The constant internal noise is profoundly exhausting, fueling a low-grade anxiety that hums beneath the surface of his calm exterior. It makes genuine peace an elusive myth he chases through solitude, only to find that silence merely amplifies the roar of his own thoughts. His greatest weapon, his analytical intellect, becomes his most persistent torturer, denying him the fundamental human need for mental stillness and the simple, unanalyzed presence in the here and now. He is a prisoner in the cage of his own mind. 8. The ordinary phobia, mediocrity as the ultimate enemy. For the Sigma there are fates far worse than failure. Failure is data. Rejection is a redirection. But a normal, predictable, ordinary life? That is his version of existential hell. He is not driven by a thirst for fame or a lust for material wealth, but by a deep, insatiable hunger for a life of significance. A life that is a deliberate act of creation, not a passive acceptance of a pre-written script. This terror of the mundane fuels him to take breathtaking risks. It is why he will walk away from a secure, high-paying job that feels soul-crushing, or defy deeply ingrained social conventions to carve a path that is authentically his own, even if it is lonely and treacherous. The mundane isn't just boring to him, it is a spiritual death sentence. This relentless flight from mediocrity creates a cruel paradox. The satisfaction from any achievement is fleeting. The summit of one mountain merely reveals a dozen new higher peaks to conquer. Stability feels like stagnation and routine feels like the onset of rigor mortis. He becomes a perpetual motion machine, driven by a gnawing sense of what's next. This makes him a stranger to contentment. He struggles to relate to those who find genuine happiness in the simple, steady rhythms of life. A stable career, a quiet family life, a comfortable routine. This deep-seated phobia of being ordinary isolates him, leaving him perpetually restless, often exhausted, and disconnected from the very people and experiences that might offer the peace he secretly craves but is programmed to reject. 9. The time tyrant, productivity as the only currency. To the Sigma male, time is not a river to be enjoyed, it is a currency to be invested. Every second of every day must be leveraged for growth, progress, or the acquisition of knowledge. Downtime is not seen as necessary rest but as a form of internal theft, a squandering of his most valuable and finite asset. This mindset corrupts even his attempts at leisure. Watching a film becomes an exercise in analyzing plot structure and character development. A casual walk is an opportunity to listen to a podcast on a new skill. Even social interactions are subconsciously weighed on a scale of value versus drain. A moment that is not productive induces a visceral sense of guilt and a gnawing anxiety of falling behind some invisible, self-imposed schedule. The inevitable outcome of living under this internal tyranny of time is burnout. The relentless pressure to optimize every moment ignores a fundamental law of human biology. We are not machines. The mind, the body, and the spirit require periods of unstructured, aimless, and unproductive rest to recover and integrate experiences. By viewing rest as a weakness and idleness as a sin, the Sigma sets himself on a collision course with physical exhaustion, mental fatigue, and a profound emotional emptiness. He wins the battle for productivity on a daily basis, but he slowly loses the war against his own human limitations. He builds an incredibly efficient life, but forgets to build one that is actually enjoyable to live. 10. The premature cut, severing ties too soon, too often. When a Sigma commits to a person, his loyalty is often absolute and fierce. However, this loyalty is protected by a hair-trigger defense system. He operates on a ruthless internal calculus where everyone in his life is constantly being weighed on a scale of value versus drain. The moment that scale tips, the moment someone crosses an invisible but rigid boundary, shows a flash of disloyalty, or simply becomes an energy sink, the connection is scheduled for termination. The execution is swift, clean, and often performed without the courtesy of a trial or even a conversation. It's a preemptive strike, a defense mechanism designed to protect his time, energy, and focus at all costs. This scorched earth policy, while efficient, is devastatingly isolating in the long run. The flaw in the calculus is its unforgiving rigidity. It fails to account for the nuance of human fallibility. Good people, loyal allies, and potential life partners are permanently excised over misunderstandings, temporary lapses in judgment, or periods of personal struggle that were misinterpreted as a permanent character flaw. The idea of having a difficult conversation, explaining his hurt, or seeking to understand their perspective is often dismissed as an inefficient waste of energy. His world, therefore, slowly shrinks, populated only by those who are purely transactional or those who have mastered the art of never, ever making a mistake. He prides himself on his zero-tolerance policy, blind to the fact that the collateral damage is a life devoid of the messy, forgiving, and resilient bonds that are the very fabric of human experience. 11. The silent protocol, refusal to explain, the ultimate self-sabotage. The unspoken creed of the Sigma male is simple: my actions speak for themselves. The idea of having to justify his decisions, explain his complex motives, or translate his internal logic for the benefit of others feels deeply insulting to his sense of sovereignty. He believes that true authenticity should be self-evident and that those who are meant to be in his life will get it without needing a manual. This isn't born from pure arrogance, though it is almost always perceived that way. It stems from a core belief in efficiency and a disdain for performing emotional labor. Why waste valuable breath and energy trying to convince someone who doesn't possess the perception to understand in the first place? This refusal to communicate is arguably his single greatest act of self-sabotage. In the vacuum of his silence, others project their own narratives. His intense focus is read as cold indifference. His need for solitude is interpreted as personal rejection. His independent problem-solving is seen as arrogant exclusion. Time and again, opportunities are lost, partnerships crumble, and relationships fracture, not because of his actions, but because of the world's complete misunderstanding of his silent intent. Even when he becomes aware of the misinterpretation, his protocol often forbids him from clarifying, as doing so would violate his principle. He stands firm in his silence, watching a bridge burn, believing it proves his point about the other person's lack of understanding, when in reality, it only proves his own greatest weakness, a strategic inability to articulate his own immense value. These are not flaws of character, they are the shadows cast by towering strengths. They are the tragic ironies of an extraordinary mindset where the armor you forged for protection becomes the cage that limits your reach. The silence that shields you also isolates you. The independence that defines you also risks stranding you. The journey of the evolved Sigma is not about abandoning these traits, but about mastering their dark side. It is not about conformity, but about the integration of strategic vulnerability. It's about understanding that the strongest fortress is one with a drawbridge that can be lowered at will, without ever surrendering the castle. You are wired for the complexities of war, but lasting peace, both internal and external, requires a different set of tools. Your mission now is to find them. This is the work we do here at the Sigma Male community. We are not here to offer simple platitudes. We are here to hold up a mirror. If this resonated with you, if you felt the uncomfortable sting of truth in these words, then you know you are in the right place. Solidify your commitment to this path of self-mastery. Like this video to signal your understanding. Comment with the weakness you will now face and conquer. Share this script with a brother who is walking this path in silence, who needs to know he is not alone in his struggle. And if you have not already, subscribe and, most importantly, turn on all notifications because our work is far from over. This is not just a channel, it is an arsenal for the mind. Stay sharp. Stay sovereign.